Bristol Community College, Mathematics with Dan Avedikian, Math 131, Elements of College Mathematics, Section 4.1, Problem 6. This is Section 4.1, Problem 6. It says, determine the problem represented by the initial simplex tableau shown below. And we have a simplex tableau. It has the following columns: x1, x2, x3, S1, S2, S3, Z, and then RHS, which again is for right-hand side. And then this simplex tableau has 4 rows. The top row is 1, -2, +3, 1, 0, 0, 0 again, and then 138. That's the top row. The second row is 4, -1, 6, 0, 1, 0, 0 again, and then 160. The third row of the simplex tableau matrix is 1, 0, 2, 0, 0 again, 1, 0, 124. And then the bottom row of the matrix is -5, -8, -3, 0, 0, 0. That's 3 zeros in a row. Then 1, and then finally ends in a 0. So the problem represented by a simplex tableau would say maximize some equations subject to some constraints. So what gets maximized is the object function, which comes from the bottom row of our initial simplex tableau. So we're going to have maximize z equals, and now in the x1 column of my simplex tableau, I have a -5. So that means in the object function, I had a 5x1. And then in the bottom row of my initial tableau, I have a -8 in the x2 column. That means I must have had plus 8x2. Again, in the object function, these are opposite sign of what's in the bottom row. The next part of the bottom row, I have a -3 in the x3 column, so it'd be plus 3x3. Again, no slack is required because this started initially as an equation. It didn't have to be converted to an equation, so I didn't need an s. The z, the 1 in the z column of the bottom row is already accounted for by the z I have out here. And the 0 in the last column, the RHS column, I don't need to worry about. So that's what I need to maximize for this problem. Then the next line is subject to, and then I'm going to need to list my constraints. So I'm going to have 3 constraints. The constraints are going to come from the first, second, and third row of my initial simplex tableau. So the top row has a 1 in the x1 column, so I would have a 1x1 as part of my first constraint, or just x1. You don't really have to write the 1 in front. I have a -2 in the x2 column, so it'd come from -2x2. I have a 3 in the x3 column, so it'd be plus 3x3. And then the 1 in the S1 column of the top row, I don't have to worry about. The zeros, I don't have to worry about. I would have had less than or equal to, the value in the right-hand side column is 138. So that's what goes on the right side of my less than or equal to symbol. So that's the first constraint that I just wrote. The second row of my matrix will give me my second constraint of the problem. So I'm going to start a new constraint. For that constraint, I'm looking in the second row of my initial simplex tableau. In the x1 column, I have a 4, so my second constraint starts with a 4x1. Then in the x2 column of the second row, I have a -1, so I'm going to have minus x2, or if you like, minus 1x2 in my second constraint. And in the second row, the next thing I have is a 6 in the x3 column, so it'd come from plus 6x3. And then the last thing I really need, I put a less than or equal to, the value in that RHS column of my second row was 160, so that's what goes on the right side of my less than or equal to for my second constraint. So I have one more constraint to deal with. I'll have a third constraint, which comes from the third row of my initial simplex tableau, which again was 1, 0, 2, 0, 0, 1, 0, 124. The 1 that my third row of my initial simplex tableau starts off with, it's in the x1 column, means I had a 1x1 as my third constraint, or to start the third constraint. You don't have to write the 1 in front. The next piece of the third row is the 0 in the x2 column. I don't have to write next to it all. You can certainly put plus 0 x2, and that would be fine. But I just won't put any x2 at all. So the next thing in my third row of my simplex tableau is a 2 that shows up in the x3 column. So I would have plus 2x3. And I don't have to line it up with the other x3s, but I do. I like the way it looks better. And then the other 0s and 1s that are in my third row, I can just go right to the less than or equal to symbol, and then on the right-hand side of that, write 124. And now I've accounted for everything that was in that initial simplex tableau, but I'm not done with the problem yet, because in its initial form, they're saying like this is what they gave you as the initial simplex tableau is part of a solution. What was the original question? The original question would have had the maximize, would have had the subject to, and after the three constraints that we wrote so far, you would have x1 is greater than or equal to 0, x2 is greater than or equal to 0, and x3 is greater than or equal to 0. And now it's done.